The most merciful thing in the world is the inability of the human mind to correlate all its contents. We live on a placid island of ignorance in the midst of black seas of infinity. But the day we finally piece together disassociated knowledge, the resulting vistas of reality will be too terrifying to bear. This terrifying process began in the winter of 1926 with the death of George Gamble Angel, a professor at Brown University in Providence, Rhode Island. Witnesses saw the 92-year-old scholar collapse on a steep hill after a sudden encounter with a nautical-looking stranger. As the professor's executor, his grandnephew inherited a locked box of files. Inside was a chaotic mixture of newspaper clippings, disjointed jottings, and a single inexplicable artifact. It was a freshly made clay bas-relief, still damp when it was first archived. The tablet depicted a monster that seemed to combine the features of an octopus, a dragon, and a human caricature squatted evilly against a background of massive, impossible architecture. The sculptor was Henry Wilcox, a student who claimed he carved the image in his sleep. Wilcox had been haunted by a recurring fever dream of a dripping, green stone city built on a scale that defied human understanding. Wilcox's nightmare was no isolated hallucination. Professor Angel's notes reveal that the sculptor's delirium was the first documented instance of a global anomaly he had tracked until the day he died. This chart tracks documented mental disturbances from the spring of 1925, showing a massive spike beginning March 1st. Press cuttings show the madness was everywhere: nocturnal suicides in London, uprisings in India, hysterical mobs in New York, all occurring in the same narrow window of time. Throughout these outbreaks, a single phonetic anomaly kept appearing in the reports. Sensitive individuals across the globe were hearing a subterranean voice chanting the same word, Cthulhu. The scale of the correlation suggests that something was acting on the human subconscious from a central, unknown source, projecting these images and sounds into the minds of the vulnerable. Professor Angel recognized the name Cthulhu because he had encountered it 17 years earlier, in 1908. That year, Inspector John LaGrasse led a police raid deep into the unmapped cypress swamps south of New Orleans, looking for a group of squatters who had vanished into the woods. The police discovered a scene of animal fury. A horde of worshippers was writhing around a ring of fire, chanting the same Cthulhu ritual that Wilcox would later hear in his dreams. At the center of the orgy stood an ancient stone idol. It was a grotesque, tentacled figure carved from an unclassable greenish-black stone, shimmering with golden flecks. Captured cultists spoke of a deathless religion waiting for the stars to reach a specific position. Only then could their high priest, Cthulhu, rise from his house in the sunken city of Relaya to resume his rule over the earth. 17 years and thousands of miles apart, the New Orleans idol and Wilcox's clay tablet are identical. The sculptor's dreams had perfectly captured the details of a prehistoric artifact he had never seen. The final proof of Cthulhu's existence came from the Pacific. An old Australian newspaper reported the recovery of a disabled yacht, the Alert, found drifting far off its course. The only man alive on board was second mate Gustav Johansen. Clutched in his arms was a third idol, identical in every way to the others. Johansen's log details the voyage. On March 23rd, the height of the global mania, his crew landed on an uncharted island of dripping, ooze-covered masonry. It was a coastline of Titan blocks that had no place on any modern map. This animation demonstrates the geometry Johansen struggled to describe. The city's architecture was non-Euclidean. The rules of matter and perspective were upset, with acute angles behaving as if they were obtuse ones. While exploring these impossible surfaces, the crew accidentally opened a massive, balanced stone door. From the darkness within, a mountainous, gelatinous entity lumbered into the air, slaughtering the men as they fled. Cthulhu is a physical reality, a biological apex predator from the stars that had been waiting beneath the sea for eons until a seismic shift briefly heaved his tomb to the surface. In a final act of desperation, Johansen rammed the entity with his ship. The monster's body burst apart like an exploding bladder, and then immediately began to reform, but the Alert escaped just as a storm dragged the city back beneath the waves. That storm occurred on April 2nd. The moment the city sank, the global telepathic broadcast was severed, and the mania affecting Wilcox and thousands of others simply vanished. The cost of gathering this evidence was life itself. Both Professor Angel and Gustav Johansson died suddenly in suspicious accidents involving strangers near the waterfront. They knew too much, and the cult still lives. Cthulhu is once again trapped in his stone chasm, shielded by the miles of water that even thought cannot pass. But he is still dreaming. And as the fate of these men proves, correlating this knowledge is a death sentence that no sanity can survive.